If you definitely don't want readings, or you don't want to come on live, or you don't want to be on video, you certainly can close your screen down so we're not seeing you per se. So thank you guys for coming to capitalize on your intuition this morning. What that means to me, the words capitalize on your intuition, means that we're moving into the dynamic of really trusting our intuition so that we can also earn at a higher level of abundance for ourselves. And what that means is abundance not necessarily meaning wealth, but abundance meaning the lifestyles that we're choosing, the love in our relationships, just building and growing. And then more importantly, yes, there is wealth when we're trusting in ourselves and creating the shift into listening to our intuition versus our ego. Yesterday, I taught a workshop on the difference between your intuition and your ego, and I just want to get really clear before we begin about the differences between the two. We absolutely have to have the ego playing a role in our lives. The ego is the part of you that signed up for this workshop. The ego is the aspect of yourself that to-do lists and tasks and remembers to get gas and pay the bills. So the ego is essential to our personal lives. But what happens when we are being raised, growing up, and then moving into adulthood, when we're little, we sort of live almost fluently in our intuition. We have make-believe friends, we have storylines, we have this ability to believe fully that we can be and do anything that we want. We have yet to realize the limitations at that point. Like a little child will say, I'm going to kick the ball all the way to the moon. And there's like this truth behind that kick of the ball, that they're really going to be able to kick harder and better than everybody else. Or they sign up for dance class and they think, I'm going to be a ballerina and I'm going to be able to leap and fly like I've seen on the cartoons. There's not a real belief in the limitations when we're little. But as we grow into adulthood, we begin to see and feel the caps. And largely we hear from the adults in our lives that we're meant to trust. We hear that there are limitations. Like we go off to college and we're told, spread your wings, fly, see how big you can go. And yet they're clipped along the way. We're as well taught that you can't actually be an artist and make money and be happy or successful. And you can't actually make certain choices if you want to be quote unquote successful. We don't actually understand the definition of success, but we understand the domestication of not getting to be successful. We understand the domestication of having limits put on us. And so what happens is we go from these intuitive children and move through our lives and we start learning these limitations. And as we learn the limitations, like imagine this is your wingspan as a child, you're so far out, right? But as we're learning these limitations, we're learning to just sort of curl in our belief system, curl in our inner knowing, curl in and start not trusting ourselves, but rather trusting what other people are saying. And as we trust what other people are saying to us, we start handing our lives over to our ego. Meaning that we're now living in a space of to-do listing, tasking, but also judging ourselves, judging others, being super self-critical of all the things that we do, creating our own limitations with our mind, and simply not totally being present with our truth being our intuition. And so the idea that I've been really working with and playing with, and I'm deviating a little bit from my plan today because I woke up and, speaking of meditating, meditated on what today needed to feel like. And I think the truth is that the presentation that I had planned is more generic than the truth. And for each of us to learn to expand, we have to trust ourselves. So today is an act of trust for myself as well as it is for you. And I hope that as I expand in this topic, you can follow along. And if there are any questions at any point, don't hesitate to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and speak up, please. So what is trust at this point? And I am going to share the screen a little bit because I am going to use both the presentation and this sort of new idea. So what is trust? Trust is at the epicenter of your success. So what does that mean? It means that at this point in our lives, if you are wanting to up level, if you are wanting to grow, if you're ready to create your own business, if you are ready to really move into whatever you define success to be, you're going to have to undo some of the domesticating that has been done to you. What that means is, for all the self-criticism, for all the limitations that you see yourself having in your life right now, imagine that that is make-believe story that you as a child, you as a junior high student, you as a high schooler, you as a college student learned along the way. You learned these limitations and that they're no longer serving you. And that at this point in your life, to be truly mindfully successful, success not being money, success not being house, success not being creature comfort, but rather success being fully living in the embodiment of who you want to be and trusting that that's enough, is to be clear, it means that you have to pull off the domestication of what society has taught you. And I'll repeat that. It means that we have to peel off the layers of the domestication that society has taught us about success. So we've been taught to believe that success equals wealth, abundance, notoriety. We've been taught that success equals being able to stand in a room and list your accomplishments. But what success actually is, in my definition, is when we fully step into the true embodiment of who we are and what it is that we want to be. And from that point, we can capitalize on our success. And I want to show you some examples today of women that I truly believe were outstanding in their ability to go against what was true in society and trust themselves authentically and truly to capitalize on this idea. So Sarah Breedlove was the first female self-made millionaire. In a time where, as you can see, Black women were simply not treated as equals per se. In a time period where we were just ending so many of the laws that kept Black people, African Americans at the time, from actually getting to participate in the world. What Sarah Breedlove did was she created a hair product and a beauty regime that was specific to Black people. Now, at that time, I'm sure she heard so many no's, so many crazies, so many you can't do this, right? She probably started with $0 and worked her way up, but she found a way to continue to trust herself because her intuitive voice was so loud, and her knowing of what society really needed, what her people really needed, were these beauty products. And she just trusted that so much that she became the first female. So that we take race out of this card, the first female self-made millionaire. I think that's a pretty profound thing. And I believe, I don't have the year written down on this slide, but it was in the 1800s that this happened. 1800s, I just want to point that out. It's pretty badass. But a lot of us won't consider this idea, right? That we could be and do anything that we want. We create the limitations that we believe in our minds, and then we don't necessarily go for it. Years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Debbie Fields of Mrs. Fields Cookies, the woman who started the cookie company that you now see in airports. She, by the way, does not own it, and that is not her cookie recipe anymore. But here's what happened. She was really good at making cookies. That was her superpower, was this cookie, and that's what she had. And she made a decision one day. She woke up and she was in an okay/terrible marriage, and she decided that she was going to make money on this cookie. She decided that that was going to be the value that she brought to the world, and that was going to be the impact that she wanted to use to, this cookie was going to be the impact that she brought into the world, because nothing is better than a cookie, a homemade cookie, because what does a homemade cookie usually equal? Family, right? It equals the sense of feeling together. It's the sense of feeling loved. Like when you eat a homemade chocolate chip cookie, it brings you back to your childhood, to your mom. Like there's so many memories wrapped in a chocolate chip cookie. And she wanted to be one of those people that brought that into the world. So she shops this chocolate chip cookie to 9 different banks. This is the 1970s. Women are still second-class citizens. And she shops that cookie to 9 different banks, convinced that this cookie is going to make a difference in the world, right? A difference in her life, and she's going to find the money to do it. No, 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 until finally the final bank offers her the minimum amount of what she's asking for. So she takes that cookie, she finds a brick and mortar space right across from a local college in Tennessee, and she bakes her first round of cookies. And she's so excited because she just knows it's going to be a blowout. She knows she's going to sell these cookies out. This is the most important thing she's ever done in her entire life. And nobody shows up to buy the cookie. Now, this is where a lot of business owners and a lot of us, as we're creating what it is that we want in the world, this is when many of us quit. Nobody shows up. We made the thing and nobody fucking shows up. We decide we're not good enough. We decide we can't do it. We decide everybody who said no was right about us. But here's where Mrs. Fields did differently. She baked another batch. Still nobody showed up. But she knew in her heart that that cookie meant something to her, that cookie was the signature of what was going to make the difference in her life. That cookie also became who she was against and with her husband, because her husband, when she left that morning to make those cookies, said, "You're never going to make it. You're going to fail." And she said in her gut, "No, thank you, Mr. Fields. I am going to win." So she made another batch, third batch. Still nobody. At this point, there's panic inside of her and there's peril. And so many people will tell you that you cannot manifest from a place of panic, that you cannot create abundance from a place of panic. But sometimes it is panic that creates abundance. Sometimes it is that space, but it has to be made right, right? You have to get to that place where sometimes you're so clear about what it is that you want and you trust yourself so deeply that you are willing to do the insane to create the sane. So she makes a fourth batch, Mrs. Fields. She takes that batch of cookies out into the street like a crazy person, as she tells the story, running up and down the streets of Tennessee across from the college, passing cookies out to the college students for free. No money exchanged here, but she's saying, "I'm Mrs. Fields and I own Mrs. Fields cookies across the street. Have a cookie. You're going to love them. And every day after school, please come visit me. First cookie's on me. Second one you have to buy, but please, please, please come in, come in." So she passes out the cookies and she realizes in that moment that this is how she's going to market her business. She's going to get people addicted to this cookie because she knows the ingredients are so true and pure. And the cookie is so good that they're going to have to come back for more. And she wasn't wrong. They loved the cookies. As a result of that day and that moment where she decided she was not going to fail, but rather she was going to trust herself in this cookie so much, she closed out the day with 35 cents in her drawer. She was not a failure. She had won. She had made money that day. Now, in the eyes of most of us starting out our businesses, starting out our lives, creating change and difference in the choices that we're making, we see these small, teeny, tiny moments as still not good enough, right? And we might still pack it up because it's not pure success. It wasn't overnight that she felt that cookie. But instead, she walked into her bakery the next day and she did the same thing over and over and over again, creating that success. And as she finally got to the place in her business where she was having employees, the first thing she would ask every employee was that they had to sing "Happy Birthday" or some other song in order to get the job. And her reason for that was, if you're not willing to make an ass out of yourself, if you're not willing to make a splash and go outside of your comfort zone, then you will not be successful. Trust is at the epicenter of success. How unbelievable is that? I want to just pause here and say, is anybody having goosebumps as you hear that story? Because to me, that story is so profound. And I'm curious what that does to your insides. Isabel, I see you moving fast to the camera. Tell me.
Just having that story, it's, goosebumps. I have kind of I don't know. It's just excitement.
Yeah.
You know, like not giving up. I mean, I'm resonating so much. I'm cooking. I'm sorry. But I'm resonating so much with feeling like a failure because you're not making $100,000 million overnight. And
Yes.
which I totally want, you know, that's what I want, but I'm which is why I'm kind of like stuck in where I am with my photography, but which I think was one of my questions to you.
Yes.
But oh my gosh, feeling like she just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and had trust in herself and the other thing is that I don't think it matters how many people have trust in you and can tell you that until you have trust in yourself. You're never gonna, it's not gonna happen.
Bing, 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 right there. So while I love being an intuitive, while I love being a psychic, while I love validating people on their journey and on their path, because I'm happy to, as well as I'm happy to open doors and show you different directions that you can go in your life, ultimately my goal is to teach you just that. How to trust yourself ultimately, and how to tap into your own intuition to become your own inner guru. Like my goal here is to put myself out of business. I believe we all have the ability to make $100,000, Isabel. I don't think it's far-fetched, but I think that we have to understand math to get there. And I think that we have to understand perseverance to get there. And there's a lot of mistakes that we're all going to make along the way before we actually get to that end result of whatever it is that we're looking for. And oftentimes the reason that we're not overnight, quote unquote, success with the, let's say 100,000, where you might meet somebody else who's successful and makes 100,000 overnight, it's that their energetic system is available to that 100,000. So what your body currently is doing and what your belief system is currently doing inside your business is growing a muscle of belief that you can make money doing what you love. That's the first thing you have to believe, right? And then as you build that and as you build the referrals off of that, 1 month it's $200, the next month it's $500, the next month it might be 500 again. You might get stuck in a loop of 500 for a while until you go, aha, I'm only speaking to one audience. And how do I get a new audience? And how do I imagine getting more people? How do I change? Because I can't do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's baking the same pan of cookies over and over, expecting people to show up. You have to go outside your comfort zone to make the change. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
I turned off my mute or I turned off my mic, but yes, it all makes sense.
Great. Okay, I'm going to mute you again. Good. So I want to use some women as examples. And I used this gal the last time I taught this particular class was Hannah Gadsby. And the reason that I think she's so profound is because she literally, like we have decades of comedy, having done the same comedy over and over and over again on loop. In general, if you were to break into the comedy industry, you weren't really going to be all that different. You were still going to set up a joke the same way. You were still going to create the tension and then a punchline. You were still going to do this one way over and over and over again. Now, granted, every comedian is unique and different based on their jokes, based on their stories, based on their personality and their hook, line, and sinker, right? But for the most part, you can count on a comedy show being this one way. And Hannah Gadsby woke up one day and she had decided that she was no longer going to follow the rules because for her, the rules were actually killing her. They were hurting her soul. She was noticing that she was in a cycle of self-deprecation, meaning that she was telling stories about her life that weren't all the way true. She was telling like bits of the story and then making jokes on herself. But when she really tore it down and started telling the truth about that story, there was a lot more depth in it and actually a little bit more yucky truth to it. And that if we really knew what was behind the story, that it would still have poignancy and humor, but maybe the impact would be even greater. And she really, truly decided, if you've not seen Hannah Gadsby's Nanette on Netflix, I so recommend it, because her story becomes so raw and authentic that it changes comedy. It changes the way that we're going to look at comedy from here on forward, because she decides to tear down the natural comedy structure. And she decides that she's going to absolutely tell her truth in the middle of it. So she begins the arc of the character by starting and presenting as a comedian, arcing into the middle where she explains she's quitting comedy and why, up to this next stage where she really tells the truth behind every joke she had just told. And yet you're still laughing and crying a little bit and feeling something. And then she ends it with just this standing ovation that changes everything. Now, she, for herself, knew and decided on the day that she presented this comedy show that she was risking her entire comedy career. She had come to the conclusion that anything less than her truth wasn't good enough anymore. She'd come to the conclusion that she was willing to give it all up to share the truth. And in manifesting, in capitalizing on your intuition, this moment in manifesting is getting clear with what I call plan D. Plan D. We all have, when we're creating a business, we have our plan A. And we're so good at our plan A. We're like, I'm going to make $100,000. I'm going to be the most successful person at whatever it is that I'm creating in my life. And I'm going to make lots of money and everybody's going to love me. And this is going to be the ultimate success. And we create an outcome. And we create an expectation, and we move into assumptions about how it's all going to look, and we leave plan A there. And then we get disappointed and fucked up when plan A isn't what you thought it was going to be. It isn't what you thought it was supposed to be or what it was supposed to look like, plan A. But what's really important, what Hannah did here in the manifestation of success, was she went straight for plan D. She decided that she was going to be a giant failure. And she got so clear that she was going to be a giant failure and so comfortable with this notion of failing by telling her truth that instead she became the ultimate and epitome of success. Because when you get comfortable with plan D, plan A actually becomes the win. And it's not always the case and it's not always true, but it's usually when you're prepared for plan D, when you are totally willing to risk everything, because you really have nothing left to lose but yourself, because that's the truth. When you have nothing left to lose but you, when you are compromising yourself to be a success, when you are making decisions because you want to live in this world, and I'm going to pause here and just take a breath because this feels big. It goes back to how I began this in the domestication aspect of our lives. When Hannah began in comedy, she was doing comedy as the domesticated comedian. She was following the rules. She'd created quite a following by following the rules. And she decided that she was going to peel the layers of domestication off. I just want to pause there with that. She decided that she was going to break the glass ceiling of her own making and the glass ceiling of what the world had made. And the glass ceiling not being the C-suite expectation, but rather the glass ceiling is actually the box within that we are contained in, that space where we've taken our wingspan down. Hannah decided she could not live in the contracted state of being any longer, and that she had nothing left to lose but her truth and herself. And this was not where she wanted to live anymore. She wanted to live in the full expansion and embodiment of who she actually is. And so when she demolished comedy that night by showing the truth and becoming not just a virtual success, an actual success in the comedy world, by breaking the paradigm and shifting out of this age-old paradox of what it was meant to look like. She didn't just shatter a glass ceiling, she shattered a box. That truth, that trust in herself propelled her to the top of the comedy market. And this same thing can be true for each of us when we trust totally in ourselves and trust in our intuition. And it's not easy. By no means is this easy. I just want to be so clear. When you're moving from the place of contraction to the place of expansion, when you are moving into this knowing that you can no longer play small, that you can no longer follow rules, that you want something more than what you've been offered your entire life, you're going to have to go to 9 banks to ask for money. You're going to have to run out onto the street and offer people the cookies. You're going to have to trust that the thing that you want most might be the biggest failure in the whole wide world. But it doesn't matter, because if you don't do the thing that you want to do, that is you compromising. That is you compromising yourself and what it is that you want. Does that make sense? I want to open this channel up in case anybody has questions. Yeah, good. So I've been playing with this idea for a while now, this idea of success and trust. Because every time a woman makes it to a C-suite, or we rock past a 6-figure marker, and I don't want to just say women, this is really people in general. If you were somebody who was brought up to believe that you couldn't have, or you were not allowed, or you had parameters and limiting beliefs that were put on you, if you grew up without much and made something out of it, you have defied odds. I use women in this spectrum because women are predominantly who I speak to, but this really is true for anybody. We defy odds every time we trust in the inner voice inside, or what I call the higher self that is in all of us, that says, yes, you can, and you are good enough. But what's more is you follow through with an actionable item every day. It's not enough to listen to the voice. You have to create an action step every day. You have to push into the unknown, into the comfort and uncomfortable zone, to really defy the odds, to really defy the limiting beliefs, because we're expanding past the box. Right now, we're all very comfortable in the spaces of domestication. We're all very comfortable in the space of belief in which we live currently. To become successful, again, that word being subjective, to this idea that we are successful in the true embodiment of who we are and what it is that we want, we're going to have to break the box. We're going to have to defy our own odds. And we're going to have to push past our own limiting beliefs. But at the end of the day, it's those who are willing to make that risk that really get what they want. So don't be intimidated by what you don't know, because that is the greatest asset and strength. And it'll ensure that you do things differently from everybody else. And I think that that's what these two women, including Sarah Bleedlove from the very beginning, that's what all of these women have in common. And this is a quote from Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. So one of the things that is very true in this is that different is scary, and it means that you don't fit in. Now, if you want to move into entrepreneurship, if you're moving into entrepreneurship, I just want to start right here and say, entrepreneurs are not fitter-inners. True successful entrepreneurs are not fitter-inners. And I say this with a caveat, because a lot of people right now are out there doing multi-level marketing sales. Now, what I think is interesting is that it's a tribe of people who are all communicating similar messages and selling similar product. But the ones at the top of that heap as well are not fitter-inners. They're doing it differently. They're not following the model. They're making the model of sale. They're the ones that you listen to when you're listening to the DVDs or the MP3 recordings that they give you to pump you up and get you ready to sell something. The women that are recorded in those are the women who defied the odds. They're the women who didn't fit in. They're the women who weren't afraid to stand out, to be loud, to make noise, to be big. That's what I really want to be clear about here. The status quo, or the domestication in which we've been brought into, is and will always be the killer of the dream. And this space, this box, this limiting belief that we live in, that really society built for us, that we are working to break against and work past, is also what becomes the ego, right? It's also what is actually the ego. Now, while society has created the paradigm in some ways, and by society I mean parents, teachers, friends, TV, radios, commercials, marketing, all of these people have created the limitations, right? But we believe them. So it's on us. We have the responsibility here to break that. We don't have to be held hostage by these beliefs. We have the right and the ability to decide at any point that we're not going to live by the rules anymore. But it means you're not going to be a fitter inner anymore. You have to spread the wings and fly. Oh, our sweet Maya Angelou. I had the great privilege of meeting Maya Angelou when I was young, when I was in college. Beautiful, just enormous woman. And by enormous, I don't mean wide, I mean so tall. She cast like such, not only was she a big spirit, but she was also just a larger than life in real life person, and just remarkable to meet. And she had just this glow about her because she was so clear about who she was. She was living in the embodiment of her true spirit, of her true self. She was not compromising. She'd been compromised as a child. Talk about a person who had grown up in limitation, right? Abused, used, and really cast aside, and becomes one of our most prominent speakers and writers of our time. If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. And this is true in life and in entrepreneurship as well. Trust yourself, trust that little voice inside of us. And the question is, do we dare, right? So I'm going to stop on the share here. Where's my little doodad? There we go. Let's see. Pause share. There we go. Sorry, technical difficulties here. Hold on, why is that not doing it? I apologize. Okay, well, this is what we're dealing with. Maybe if I do this. Nope. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties are the deal. So what I want to do is just basically open the channel up. There's 3 of you today. I want to sort of speak to each of you on this idea of intuition. Oh, we'll just leave it there. That's pretty. Of intuition, and really moving past any insecurities to the point where you can really trust yourself. So I want to open up, and each of you, since you're here, get free reading. So any questions that you have, I will look at intuitively, as well as just share with you anything that I get with regards to that. And I know, Isabel, I'll start with you because you are the one that sent questions to me early on. So if you want to sit down and show us your face and ask questions, get online here.
I'm here. I'm here.
Hi. I'm here. I'm here.
I'm here.
Awesome. Let me get your questions that you had asked earlier. Okay. You're confident in your ability to shoot almost anything with photography, but is there a more specific area that you would be most successful at? Again, I want to clarify success. What does success mean to you?
It means not having to work for anybody else.
Okay, that's fair.
Being able to support not only myself, but my, my family, and it actually means freedom more than anything else. And by freedom, I mean freedom to go dancing every day, or
Right.
freedom to take care of myself, or.
So what would you do? Like, would you take photos every day if it meant you wouldn't make any money at all?
Actually, yeah, probably.
Okay. So that's the definition of success right there. Is like, I'm going to do this thing no matter what, because it's in my heart and my passion to do. Like, I want to be behind the camera and I want to be capturing these ideas. I want to capture these stories, because what I think is the true impassioned aspect of yourself is, I want to capture story. I want to tell stories with my eyes. I want to share these stories with the world. And so to be the most successful version of yourself is to actually not prohibit yourself to only take photos when you're getting paid, but rather go out into the world and be creating photos and story no matter where you are in the world and whatever's happening in your life. Like, spend, if you're out on a run, Isabel, being you, find those moments to capture those, and then tell us a story with it. Share a story, and creating that little blog post that has the pictures with the story, making sure that you're really putting your logo on top of that, and making sure that we're understanding who you are as a person, as a brand, and what kind of stories you really want to tell, like what really moves you. And what I would say that really moves you isn't the nature photography that you do end up taking, but rather I think the truth is that you want to tell the underprivileged story. And that you actually want to show and highlight what it is to live in an underprivileged life, and then be the one who actually is the one that gets out and showing people the way to the door. So imagine that through this experience, you are actually beginning at the spot that you are right now, sharing the underprivileged story, and beginning to highlight and showcase the way to the door. Do you remember the hummingbird post that I posted the other day? Did you see that?
I don't think I did.
Okay, so a hummingbird got trapped in our garage. And I just want to be so funny about this, because the hummingbird got trapped in the garage and the garage door was open.
Okay.
And the hummingbird is flying at the top of the garage and the door is open. All it has to do is move 2 inches below where it's flying, and it would see that the door is wide open. And this is analogous to so many of us and how we're treating our lives at current, is that we are flying around in the same pattern that we've been flying in, and the door's right fucking there. So when it comes to your photography, imagine you are your subject, but you're actually writing the story.
That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine your friends are your subject and you're writing that story. But in the meantime, because you have to make money, Isabel, you're selling photography setups, you're selling senior photos, you're selling family photos, you're selling portrait photography, because that's the income. But the truth is, you're following the reason it got started in the first place. And that's where the success rises. That's where it differentiates you from the portrait photographer to what it is that you actually want.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's the differential. Empathic abilities, this relates to exactly what I just said. If you're to actually be honest and true to the story that you want to tell, then that's how you use your empathic talent and ability, by actually representing the people that stories aren't being told.
Okay.
And telling it with the visual of photography, and then writing it, and or representing it in video in some capacity. Like, it doesn't have to be photography. You could be making video as well with regards to this, but it's your empathic gut feeling that allows you to meet these people where they are and actually trust and believe in their story and show that and showcase that story. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then working on yourself right now, wondering partnership with your tribe. And I do want clarity around that.
Okay. So maybe it's too much information, but I'm part of this tribe, a dancing tribe, which I am just passionate about. I mean, I've lost 30 pounds and I'm
so great.
And I feel really great. And I love the women that are in my tribe. And I am kind of in love with my dance teacher. And and when I say that, it's, people go, what? But you're not,
Mm-mm.
But the way I see it mostly is that I'm in love with the way she makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in love with the energy that she surrounds herself with.
She's
and
in the
how,
true embodiment of who she is.
absolutely.
She's the
And
example.
it's, yeah. And I just, I just want to be around her all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that being said, my question is, and without, I'm trying not to like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying not to do.
So one of the things, what I got initially without reading into who the tribe was that you were talking about, my initial hit, and I'll just go with that, Isabel. Mm-hmm. My initial hit on it was no. Mm-hmm. And here's why.
Okay.
Because actually you're in a space of up level right now. And while this tribe might be some of that, it's actually really important that you're networking up.
Okay.
So like that can be a soft landing for you. That can be a space of comfort and enjoyment and pleasure. That's fine. But the responsibility for where you want to go is really in the networking and the up leveling and being with people that make you uncomfortable, who already have what it is that you want. Because what you're accustomed right now energetically is people who are at your level. Mm-hmm. And where you want to go, if you're wanting to achieve the 100 air, I call it the 100 Air Club, then you need to meet people and hang out with people who are in the 100 Air Club.
Okay.
One of the great, you guys are Westminster, is that true?
We're Broomfield. Yeah, Westminster, yeah.
So there's a women's networking group called Daring Divas in Boulder. And I would like to see you going to that once a month if you can make that a priority.
Daring Divas, okay.
Daring Divas, okay.
Yeah.
Because tribe is super important, but it has to be tribe that speaks the language that you're moving towards, not the language and energy that you're already in.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
That makes complete sense, actually.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. Ashley, how might I serve you in this space, and how has this landed for you?
Hi.
Well,
after we spoke last,
yeah.
I don't know if you can see me. My lights are off.
I can. Yep. You're awesome.
Okay. So I took a job just to have something to do. There was a lot going on in my life, and I hate everything about it. So I've honestly, I've been trying to figure out where to go next, what to pursue, where, it's kind of hard to explain, but where my passion and my strengths can collide. And I don't know. I mean, it's so interesting to hear Isabel talk and be so passionate about so many things. And I'm not sure I have that right now. So,
well, and I would say, sweetie, because I know the little bit that I know is that when you go to law school, talk about the ultimate domestication of one's heart and soul, right? It's like we're going to really box the parakeet and put it in a dark, shabby corner. Yep. And while some people rise in that space, and while some people really do find pleasure and passion within the law, it's not true for a lot of people. I have a gal that is named Jennifer Masquera. She's a really good friend of mine. Her dad was like, you have to go be something. And all she really wanted to be was an artist. And so she went to law school. And she spent 1 year in the office of law and went, I just only want to be an artist. And you can look her up. She's profound. She's a gorgeous artist, just really beautiful. She's local. But she gave up her law degree because she knew she wanted to be an artist. She didn't get quashed because she knew when she went into law that was really more her passion. So one of the things, my initial hit upon you saying what you just said about not really having many passions and not knowing where you want to go, says to me that, and I use art because art is a way to open up the creative channel of what it is that we ultimately want. So I would suggest taking the dance class with your Isabel and
sounds fun.
Right. Go dancing as much as you can in that space that won't make you totally feel uncomfortable, and or even yoga, just the idea that you're moving your body and opening your mind up to this idea that you can be and do anything you want. The beautiful part of what you have that so many of us don't have is too much education, which means
too much is right.
Right. But what it means is that really the doorways are not closed for you. Like, you really don't have to be curious about what you can't be. Rather, the curiosity is what you want to be, because no door won't be available to you. So I
don't know that that's true, because it's kind of, when you're mid-career, you're sort of stuck in what you've always done.
Yes and no, because what you have, like, you can paint any resume picture you want. Like, and that's the thing.
Where my artistic ability needs to come in.
Correct. Or somebody who is really great at listening in that, like, so one of the other hits that I'm getting is that I do think that there's a piece of you that has, there's a little, and I'm saying this with some hesitation, but I feel there's a vigilante in you. Like, deep inside, there's a vigilante screaming to come out, who actually wants to create massive impact and change in the world. And that has somehow been repressed. And I think when you followed the chain of legal in, there was a piece of you that was like, what impact or change can I create? Now, for me, I'm getting the female version, but it might just be that we've been talking about women in general in this. But I do feel and sense that one of the aspects that you'd be terrific at is helping lead women to a place of success, similarly, but with more facts and a lot more legitimacy than what I do. But I do feel that you would create great impact in working in a career situation, like career-wise, helping women rise into their own position and occasion. And in the legal, but more importantly, like, if you were to use your legal aspect, it would be to represent women who have either been fired because they were women and or weren't able to get where they wanted to be in their company because they were women. And I hate putting that cap on because they are such. You could do it with men, you could do it with gay, I don't care. But the point is like representing the people who want something, who aren't able to get where they want because somebody has squashed their dreams along the way, in a real sense, in the real workplace. So from a legal standpoint, I'm seeing like this ability in you to listen, because I think that's actually your superpower, is the listening. And then strategically find a better way. You are not somebody who will represent a victim. So as I'm telling you this, I want to be so clear that you are not the victim's advocate, but rather you are the person who's already empowered, who's been somehow fucked along the way. And it's a true, like, somebody truly screwed them, and it's real. Like, you are not going to be the free attorney victim advocate person. You are the representation of the person who actually did, in fact, get upended. And we know this to be true. This happens a lot in corporate. We know this to be true, that people are upended in their career because they didn't do something the right way according to the top guy, or they had a secret that they shouldn't have had. So they got put away. There's a multitude of reasons why people lose, but that's where I see the vigilante aspect in you. Again, it's not the victim advocate, because I think those people would drive you bonkers. It's the people who are already empowered and need to be where they were supposed to go, but then somebody cut their legs off. If that makes
interesting.
Sense. Yeah. And I think that it would just create, using the degree that you have, I think that it would really create impact in your life too. I think like, what feels dead inside is the value or the lack of purpose in what you're currently doing.
Yes.
And that there's not an emotional component to it.
Right.
And I think the emotional component is what's really feeling missing, as well as the desire to be your own boss and have more time for your children. It does feel like the hit is also that you would like to be home more, that you would like to be a representation of your family. And that while this suits and it fits and it pays the bills, etc., it's not filling the soul. But if you had something that was more contractual and that you were choosing, then that would add value. And if none of this is landing, then I would recommend more dance and more art.
That's probably good for everybody.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions with regards to career or life? Either one.
Oh, I'm just feeling a little ship at sea right now.
Yeah.
As far as all of those things, just everything seems to be a little chaotic right now. And, not sure where I'm supposed to land, kind of a thing. So that's why your email was like, I need to follow up with Willow.
Yeah. What I will do when we get off, and I've been meaning to put this together, so today you are going to be the inspiration for this. I'm trying to put together, I have a hard copy of it, but I'm trying to put together this online version of it, a more virtual book or ebook, whatever you call them. But what it is it's 14 days into the creative. So you can choose to do over 30. But the idea behind it is it's giving you an activity every day to write, move, or sort of sing to that will help really open this up. And what it is when we have totally domesticated and shut down our creative, which is what I'm sensing, it's called the sacral chakra, just to get woo on you. It's in the lower half of the belly. It's sort of an energetic space with which we live. And when that shuts down, we move into what we call the martyrdom of our careers, which is we believe we have to work really, really hard to get what we want. And that we have to do for everybody but ourselves. It's really hard to write a storm when we're not actually taking time to do something for ourselves. It's really hard to write a storm when we're not so much as caring for who we are or identifying with who we are, when we're identifying with our children, our spouse, our career, but not actually ourselves. So I will send you this. It's delightful. I will get that done today. You are now my motivation.
Good. That sounds awesome.
Yes. And I will follow up with you as well to see how that's feeling and landing as well. But it's a promise to yourself. What I would say is, as I'm getting that ready in the next 2 days, like find a really great anthem, a song that really represents you. Maybe 3 songs is what I'm getting, is like the one from junior high, the one from high school, and the one from college. Those are the 3 development stages that really represent who you are at your core before you became an adult. And those are the spaces where you were still intuitive, still sort of free-ish, still figuring stuff out. And so see if you can't remember those 3 songs and start playing them for yourself as you're driving to work, as you're driving home, singing them out loud, and start seeing what memories flood in from those time periods of who it was that you wanted to be at those stages and ages. And like begin to write to that, like in the morning, like if you get that hit or that journal, record it on your phone or write it down and be like, I remember when, is sort of the sentence that I would go off of, is I remember when. And see what starts showing up, because inside of you is a whole lot of truth that got buried in between all of this. Becoming an adult, becoming serious and important, you know? And so it's really taking her back to that place where she was at the school dance for the first time, and the first kiss and the corsage and the girlfriends that just made up your whole life, and playing sports and having fun and not having any responsibility. Inside of that is the answer you're looking for.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. I love psychic. It's so cool. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Jane, how's your biz? What's happening? Anything new?
Well, what I wanted to ask you about is, since I talked to you last, I was kind of like focused on one thing. I've gotten distracted a little bit by shiny things out here, and I'm doing some different things. But what I wanted to ask was, when it comes to like getting ideas and trying to discern whether this is the ego saying like do this, or if this really is my intuition telling me do this. Because right now I kind of feel like I'm going in some other directions, and I'm kind of exploring. I'm still with the same concept, and what I'll share with you was a big moment for me in the Mrs. Field story is I don't have the cookie. Like, my truth isn't the cookie right now, or my truth isn't the skirt, but my truth is that beautiful things could be created out of recycling, reusing, and doing that. So I'm set in that. I'm really good there, and I'm really
That's
solid.
the story though, Jane. Like, that's the story, and that is the truth. And that's the thing is, like, Mrs. Jane, it wasn't the cookie. It was what the cookie represented.
Yep.
It was the feeling you get.
Yeah. So now if I go, okay, so I have that, but obviously what is my avenue to take that to market? How do I pick the cookie as opposed to the muffin, as opposed to the cake? Like, for me, do I pick the skirt, and I have different varieties of that, or do I pick the handbag, or am I just going to try to
all of it,
spread it thin, throw it all out there?
All of it. You create a stand that has all of it. Okay. And the story is, this is what you make when you recycle other people's dreams. And it doesn't have to be that tagline, but that's the truth of it, is like, here's what we can make when we recycle other people's dreams and things. Like, you're taking sheets, you're taking clothes, you're taking these recycled materials that somebody else wore, that somebody else went to sleep dreaming on, that somebody actually made themselves because they too had a dream, right?
Okay, I finally got the part about the dream with the sheets. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Right? Like, you're literally wearing other people's dreams.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's great.
Yeah. And I think the story is like, what can you make? Like, yes, buy my shit, but what can you make out of recycling other people's dreams? Like, we can all kind of, you too are a vigilante in the, like, what do you want to do in your life? You can be and do anything you want. And really, like, when you wear these clothes, you could dream up anything. When you're wearing this handbag is a representation of a recycled dream and a new dream put together. It's really two dreams in one. And you could have like a really sweet story or quote in the tags, you know, that relate to this recycling idea.
Yeah. So do you think, and I kept kind of, as you were talking earlier, this kind of kept coming to me, and it's so not what a real business person would say, but I kept feeling like it doesn't matter what the cookie, the muffin is. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It really doesn't matter. Just do something. Like, that's not that thing that I create is not the make or break item. That's not the whoo, you know.
Right. And I think that is the domesticated version of business. The domesticated version is come up with one PLU or PLU that is going to be your brand, right? But your brand isn't the skirt. It isn't a handbag. It isn't even a pair of gaucho pants. It's the recycled sheet. It's the recycled material with which you're creating these awe-inspired pieces by. It is true. What you said is true. Your story is the brand, and what you make out of it is the joy. And I think that you can have an online shop that this is just the story.
Mm-hmm.
The shop can just be the story, and the products are what came out of that story.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be one thing.
Yeah.
Break the rules.
Well, and it's interesting that you're bringing the theme about the dream, because I had a girlfriend visiting last week, and we were kind of talking about all this stuff, and then she showed me something. She's like something on Pinterest, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I really like this," and I was like, "I can do that for you,"
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "You can," and I go, "Yeah." So basically, what the idea is how many people have like a favorite shirt that you just don't purge out of your wardrobe, but you don't wear it either because there's something not right. It's too short, it's too long, it's not this style, that style. I said, give me that favorite shirt and I will rework it and give it back to you in a fashion that you can wear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really just liked that. I just was so on that idea of, let me take that favorite thing,
Mm-hmm.
that favorite shirt, that piece that you just love the material that you can't get rid of, and let's rework it and have you using it as opposed to just sitting in your closet.
So what I would say, Jane, is similarly to sort of what I was saying to Isabel, like imagine the skirt and the handbag is its own brand, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's sort of like her version of taking portraits for people, right? Like that's going to make you the money. But the enjoyment aspect is like really the invention for you. Like you can put together 3 patterns that you can hire somebody else out to sew all day long, right? So you create those 3 patterns and that becomes the brand and that becomes the business, and 3 other people are sewing those things and you don't have to worry about it. But because the passion is an invention for you, the way that the passion is in creating just beautiful stories are for Isabel, you also can reinvent these things and it becomes your blog. It becomes your, what can you do with recycled? It becomes your, look at this shirt and how we reinvented it story, where you could actually be doing a before, a middle, and an after with a story to it, so that you can show how we don't just recycle here in these 3 ways, but we continue to up level. We continue to, or upcycle, isn't that the term? Upcycle? Mm-hmm. We continue to upcycle these materials, and you can transform anything in your closet. I have some people at Craftsy. I don't know if you've heard of Craftsy. It's CRFTSY.
Mm-hmm.
But they take people who have massive YouTube followings and they basically up level them and give them better like advertising and give them money and have them teach classes and create videos for them. Mm-hmm. I'd be really intrigued to see you start doing stories about that version, about the experiential of taking somebody's shirt and sort of upcycling it and reinventing it for the person to continue to wear. I think that would make such a huge impact, and you could be putting that on your website. You could be having that playing at any booth that you have where you're selling your goods and wares, right? Mm-hmm. But I would be creating, 3 to 5 patterns, whether it be skirts and bags, because I love a bag. I'll always buy a bag. I will always spend way too much money on a bag, as I will for a skirt as well. But to have a booth that represents those 3 things using all the recycled material, but then imagine bringing in video of you actually working this, because it creates that personal reflection and that personal experience for whoever's watching it. They're going to want to see what's in their closet and what they can upcycle as well. And it'll inspire people to go into their closet and shop from within and figure out how they can upcycle that as well. Mm-hmm. I think it's a movement. I think it's something that's really beautiful, and it'll keep you from getting bored.
Yeah, because I struggle with that.
Yeah. I think you've got to hire out. You've got to get those patterns set, and you've got to hire that out. And that way you can move to marketing, which is fun as well. And don't be afraid of marketing. Marketing is enjoyment. It's fun. It's playful. It is you just doing you. And this could be a great marketing avenue, is really videoing you upcycling materials and then bringing them to your website.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Well, I will look into the Craftsy thing, you know, you know, this thought came to me as you were talking about it, and I just have to work through this because I think it's one of my blocks. You know, I am not at all a professionally trained sewer. Like I make it up, like, and and when I do things, I'm just like making it up. I'm like, oh, that didn't work. We'll tear that apart. So, you know, I hesitate to go, oh, I could put myself out there because I'm not even a seamstress, you know?
That's okay. That's okay. But that's the thing. It's like, that's the domestication of belief. That's the limiting belief right there. It's like, I'm not professional. So therefore, who the fuck do I think I am to be doing this work? Yeah. This is the story we love to tell ourselves and everybody else, right? But it's horseshit. It's not real and it's not true. The truth is that you know how to sew with your mind, the way that a musician who has never been classically trained but can hear music can get on a piano or a guitar and simply play music and create because they can feel it and they can intuit it. You're intuiting sewing. Mm-hmm. That's all you're doing. You're feeling the fabric and you're imagining the outcome. And then you're letting your hands and the machine work together as one. It's no different than a musician who's not classically trained. And by the way, those are generally speaking some of the best musicians out there, the ones that have no classic training.
That would be me.
Right. But they don't have parameters for creating. Yeah. Right. I was in a class a couple days ago where they were teaching energy and like I do a lot of energy healing and energy work. And I refuse. Yeah. I was like, you guys, I appreciate it. And I'm real grateful to be here, but I got to go because I don't want any impressions. Actually, the less trained I am in psychic and the less trained I am in energy, the more available I am to creating truth. Mm-hmm. And not having somebody else's projected truth put on this. Mm-hmm. Right? Same thing with what you're doing. If you were classically trained, then you'd have the projection of that classical training prohibiting you from actually doing what it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So what would be a tool for all of us to use? Let's say I have 5 patterns and I really need to narrow it down to 3. And I really want to intuitively, and I want to feel into which of these I should do. But then somewhere over here, I have chatter about, no, do this, people would like that. How can I intuitively start to make those decisions and then really be trusting in that?
Right. So the ego doesn't believe what you've made is good enough. That's it. So intuitively, you are absolutely where you need to be. Okay. And the chatter that's showing up is ego saying it's not good enough.
Okay. So that's just tell that.
Yeah. And tell ego like, hey, yo, let's get these launched. Let's get these to the market. Let's see how people respond, because the truth is like, people are like, if you have 5 SKUs right now, that's great. Put 5 out and use it as market research to see what gets purchased. Mm-hmm. And the people are going to tell you what they like best. It doesn't have to be your intuition with regards to that. I'm sure I've told you the color cord story about my friends who like traveled around the world curating all those beautiful things. And it was the color cord. Like we don't know what the people really necessarily are going to love. And that's the thing, is the ego is trying to decide and create a solution for something that hasn't been decided yet. The ego is on the warpath to getting it right and not getting it wrong and being a success. This is what our ego does. Like, it can't get wrong. We can't be wrong, and it has to be a success. But it's like actually putting out the material that feels great and that you've thus far created. And then essentially what you're doing is you're testing the market every time you put it for sale. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing a booth somewhere, whatever people keep touching and not buying, but buying and touching and walking away with is going to be the winner. A lot of people are going to touch things and they're going to say, am I there yet? And it might be next season's model and you're planting the seed for next season's model. But the thing that they're buying is this year's. So you'll know for next season, whatever they kept touching is the one that you want to keep making for next year and build up that material. And the thing that they kept buying, keep making for this year, but it might not be rad next year. That's the thing about fashion as well, is just really following in the, what are they staring at? We're planting seeds. Oh, a person that just showed up into my head that really I think would benefit you to look at in the fashion world is Lindsay Thornburg.
Okay.
Write that down. Lindsay Thornburg. She has a collection of cloaks that she makes. She started in New York and she did all of her own stitching, handwork. It's all very much patch made initially. Now I think she does more work with wool and other things, but it's all very unique stuff. And she got discovered because, what is her name? Some famous starlet wore it. The girl who's married to Ryan Reynolds, if anybody can name her, do that. Anyway, she like hunted down Lindsay Thornburg. She saw somebody in New York wearing this cloak and hunted the person down and was like, where did you get that cloak? And suddenly she was wearing all of Lindsay Thornburg's things and the poor girl just blew up. But all of her work is unreal and it's very analogous to what you're making. I'm not saying it's comparative because they're very different, but she's somebody who broke the rules and defied the fashion laws as well. So somebody just to like go, aha, if she can do it, why wouldn't I? And she started out with a cloak, but it just happened that was what was, I think she had other items, but it was like, that was her color cord was the cloak.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome. Any other questions from anybody? Has anything shown up in the space that needs just another question or another minute? I'd love to just open up the lines to anybody if you guys have any closing thoughts. You did good. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Ashley, did you have a question?
No question. Just joining back in. I've been listening.
Awesome. So one of the reasons I started this program last year, I wrote this program. It's both written word, video, there's yoga movements. It's really to help push people into the true embodiment of who they are. And while I created this enigma really 2 years ago, put it on paper finally last year and ran some people through it, I didn't really know what it was even last year. And this year it's become really clear what Rise Unlimited is. And what Rise Unlimited is really this 12-week program to get you out of the box, to really help you trust yourself, to build up your intuitive muscles, to build up your wealth muscles, to build up the trust ultimately in yourself so that you can go from this contracted place to this full wingspan. So if anybody's interested in learning more and understanding what you experienced here today is very much what you'll experience inside the program. I work one-to-one individually with absolutely everybody, as well as we work as a group and as a tribe in periods as well, so that you're getting that group mentality and you're getting the individual mentality so that you can really understand the expression of who it is that you want to be and to fully understand what it is that you're after and how to break through the glass ceiling that is otherwise keeping you limited and keeping you from really getting to be who it is that you want. So if you're interested, you can get a 30-minute free call. It's under Rise Unlimited Discovery Call on my website, and I will put that in the email with this recording. So if there's any questions, don't hesitate. And feel free to email me, willowbradner@gmail.com, if you have any questions following this video. Lots of love to you guys this morning. Thanks for being here. We had like 8 people, and I just love that it was actually smaller because I got to really spend intimate time with each of you. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for taking the time today. And if there's any questions, don't hesitate to email me, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, see if this will do. Wow. If anybody's still on here, this is hilarious. There we go.